Welcome back to episode 24, Out of Bounds, a podcast where I give my social commentary on different topics in today's society. And today we are doing a powerful scene. This is the second one in the series. Haven't done one in a while, but today I'm talking about the party scene from Blindspotting. If you haven't heard of that, that is my number one movie of 2018, Blindspotting. Featuring David Diggs and, Raphael Cascal, I believe. They are a writing duo. Diggs, of course, is from, Hamilton Popularity, the play with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and a couple other things. So, yeah, these two, they do a lot. They do spoken word, they do poetry, they do rap, and then they collaborate together to make this movie. And they also star in the movie. So it is absolutely amazing. I suggest you see it. But the particular scene we're talking about today is the party scene, in which there's so much happening, but I'm going to try to break down the main things. So number one, Miles and Colin, who are the two main characters, they go to a party of one of their friends, and this is a friend they usually ignore their parties. They don't kick it with them. And this time they go to the party because we just came from a very emotional scene in which Miles' son found the gun that he brought into the house and was playing with it, and stuff almost happened. So Miles gets kicked out by his baby mama. Colin is also with him. He gets kicked out too. And Colin doesn't stick up for Miles in that case, where he's like, that's not my gun. And so Miles is upset. They're kind of going back and forth, like, why didn't you say it was your gun? He's like, cause it's not actually my gun. All that. And the premise of this movie is that Colin is 3 days away from into his probation, in which he went to jail for. And so Colin is very aware of what's going on with him as a felon. Not to mention, he saw police shoot a young man earlier. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. So anyway, these two go back and forth, and Miles calls an Uber. Miles gets an Uber to this party. He's like, F it. Why would you want to be out here in the streets, on your last night of probation? Let's go to the party where a bunch of, lame and hipsters hang out. Nothing's going to happen. And so they end up going, and the party scene is so good because it starts off at this guy's house who's as they call a transplant, which is a white person that's kind of gentrifying the neighborhood. And he's kind of like, oh man, me and Miles have the same tattoo. And he's like, dude, Oakland is my home. Now Miles is a Euro-American Caucasian, but he has lived in Oakland his whole life. And so they call it the town. He's about the town, and he understands and he lives the life that's going on there. But there's so many transplants, as they call them, people coming from different areas that are trying to gentrify the neighborhood, that people get him mixed up with a hipster or someone trying to gentrify the neighborhood. And so, when he has tattoos and he has grill and he talks a certain way, it's natural. It's his authentic life. But there's people that get it mixed up, including the guy that owns the house, who's a straight hipster, just like, yeah, man, we got the same tattoo. Oakland's my home. So that's strike one. Miles goes to the kitchen to get a drink. And then Colin, who is a black man or African American, he goes to the living room where they meet their friend who they've been ditching. And she's like, yo, y'all never come to my parties. Y'all picked a weird one to come to. It's our boss's party, and it's a lot of hipsters here. And so they just like, whatever. And so, Colin, his friend, and one of her friends, they're the only three black people there, and they're kind of talking. And then the guy that's in the group, the African American guy, says, I'm gonna go get a drink too. So in the kitchen, this African American guy runs into Miles, who's making drinks. Miles is upset that the local fast food place is now catering and blah, blah, blah. And so the African American dude is laughing, just saying like, you don't have to talk like that, all this stuff. And Miles is a hothead. Miles is upset. He's like, this dude really just talked to me like I'm a regular white boy, basically. And so the African American dude goes back to the party with Colin and a friend, and they're like, yeah, man, I just ran into this culture vulture. He's got a grill, tattoos. He's like, yeah, bro, what it do? And like, he's talking it up like he defended the culture. Like, yeah, I just put that white boy in check because, they out here stealing our stuff. And then it wasn't until it's too late that Colin realizes he's talking about his friend Miles. And Colin knows that Miles is not no culture vulture. Miles is very much a real dude. And so before Colin could break it up, the African American dude goes back to the kitchen and Miles is waiting and a fight breaks out. And so these two go blow for blow. It ends up outside. They're fighting, scrapping. Colin tries to break it up and take Miles out, but then African American dude follows him outside. They continue fighting and Colin doesn't jump in. And eventually they get broken up and they go their separate ways. So that's really the end of the scene. And there's a good scene after that, but I won't go too much into it. But I'll just stick with that scene. There's a lot that's going on in there. So I've talked about before about this idea of what it means to be black, what it means to be white and all that. And I tell people that black and white is a culture. I try not to use it as race and ethnicity because it's not. African American, African, Euro American, all these different things. White is a form of privilege. Black is a form of oppression. The way we use it, ghettoized, minoritized as black, cool, urban, street, hip hop. Then we talk about white, more uptight, privileged, conservative. And so when we're talking about that as a culture, it makes a lot more sense. But when people use it as a form of identity and race, then that's when people get confused. So then you get a guy like Miles, as I mentioned, we'll say, okay, well, he's not, some people be like, oh man, that's my brother. Or yeah, he black, he black by default. Or, he part of the family because he lives the same culture and lifestyle that we do. And so that's Miles. Miles is from Oakland. He grew up there. He know the moves and the shakes. But other people don't know that. We identify people by what we see. And so a lot of people see him as just another quote unquote white boy who is, gentrifying and culture vulture. And at the flip side, you got these people who feel like they're supposed to be quote unquote black, that their job is to then check other people. And that we know what black is. We know what best means to be black. So you got a guy who obviously isn't from, the same part of Oakland that Miles is. But since his skin is dark, he says it's my job to check Miles. And I need to tell Miles what to do because he's stealing from my culture. And the fact is, Miles lives that culture way more than this dude ever does. So when he tries to, one up him, tries to claim back some power by shutting down a white boy, quote unquote, he finds out quickly that was the wrong move. And then in the intersection, you got Colin. Colin, who is, same from Oakland as well, dark skin as well. except he's trying to do better than Miles. He's not trying to give himself to anger. He's trying to live a better life after becoming a felon. And so he's trying to tiptoe the lines, and it's like Miles is out here making it real hard because Miles just blows up about anything. And on top of that, you have the conversation of white privilege. So as much as I talk about you being black and white is more culture, not identity, there is the obvious truth of white privilege and perception. Like I said, it doesn't matter where Miles comes from and what he knows and what he does. People look at him and see a white boy. And so the same thing like African American man saying, yo, that's a culture vulture. On the same coin, you got another, Caucasian police officer that looks at him and says, oh, that's, a non-threatening white dude. And so you get the privilege also with the downside. And so since that's the case, Miles can pop off. Miles can be angry. Miles can do dumb stuff because it's a less chance that he's going to get in trouble for it. When Colin has experience that the few times that he has popped off, he's had big trouble for it because of the darkness of his skin. And so that's when these two characters come to head to understand, like, wow, I'm penalized a lot more than you are just because of the color of my skin. Now, right or wrong, whether it's an identity or if it's a culture, that's how the world operates currently. And so people are going to give you the benefit of the doubt before they give me the benefit of the doubt. But the movie is so good because it shows the downside. Like I said, it's not all roses because he's white or, you're American. Miles has to go through stuff that is threatening because if we as a African American person live in a black lifestyle in one of those areas, we're continually challenged on, are you from here or, are you not? That's threatening to our existence because now people think they can test you. People think they might be able to get away with stuff with you. People might try to rob you, all this stuff. You have to then prove, look, I'm from here and I'm about that lifestyle. Like, you're not about to play me. And so Miles sees it the same way. That's the way he grew up. Even though he's Caucasian, he grew up that way. Like, people challenging my stature and my existence is dangerous. So I need to always make sure people know where I'm from. And so since he has the white skin, it's another added challenge for him to always show people where he's really from. And so he looks at it as like, you being, a African American black person, you got the benefit. You don't have that challenge. Most people expect that you from where you from. And I got to continue to prove that I'm from here. And Colin is like, dude, but you got that white skin, that Caucasian skin. People don't question you doing something dangerous. So it's like, which one is better? Like, people always debate, is it better to be able to say the N-word, or is it better to be able to control or influence economics? And of course, that's an exaggeration, but it kind of what it boils down to. It's like, yeah, you get some urban street cultural benefit of being African American, but what is that compared to the benefits you get and the privilege you get of being Caucasian? So it's a lot going on in this scene, but I would definitely say check out the movie, check out the scene if you haven't seen it. Go down in the comment section, let me know what you think. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, and thank you for listening. Until next episode.